Hey, so as promised, I'm back with part two of my story. And this part is about my teenage pregnancy and the birth of my oldest son and how I got to that place. I'm currently the mother of 4 kids. My oldest son is 18. He is a senior in high school right now. I got pregnant with him when I was 18, and I had him when I was 19. I met his biological father through some, at the time, what I thought were friends. But of course they ended up not being friends. Because they were not looking out for my best interest. So when I first met my son's father, I was 18. My father had just passed away the fall before. So I was in a very lost and dark place at that time in my life. And I was looking and I was searching for love. But I was looking in all the wrong places. I mean, all the wrong places. I found myself when I started dating my son's biological father, I found myself doing things that were out of my character. I found myself trying to show off and fit in and be accepted by him because he would always, tell me that I wasn't good enough, and he may have not used those specific words, or he probably did, I don't remember. But there was always a comparison game between past girlfriends and me, and I just always wanted to be accepted. That's not his fault. It was a me thing because I wanted to be accepted. Him talking to me like that was inappropriate and not acceptable, and you should never treat anybody that way. But how I felt on the inside was not his fault. But regardless, I found myself, getting into fights physically with him, getting into physical fights with him and other people over like weed and like beating people up and just doing things that we like should not have been doing at all. And that was definitely not in my character, but I was just so angry on the inside. And I remember at this point, I had probably been very angry on the inside for a long time because there was just a lot of abandonment issues. I did not have very much authority. I did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and it left me as a broken person. So even in the process of me being this broken person, I'm over here hurting other people, including myself and others, over dumb things that like don't even matter. Just dumb stuff. And so fast forward, we're now into end of 2004, 2005. I end up getting pregnant, which I never should have gotten, pregnant by this particular gentleman. I do not regret it because I love my son so much. He is my heart. And I thank God every day for him because literally at that time as well, I realized that later on, I knew how real God was because the exact prayer that I prayed while I was pregnant with my son, which was for him to look like me. And yes, I know that was shallow. Very shallow, but you know what? God answered my prayer because he is my twin. He's definitely my twin. Yes, does he look kind of like his biological dad? Absolutely, but he's definitely my twin. But regardless of that, just thinking back, fast forward, I had a horrible time being pregnant because I was super sick for almost the whole pregnancy, throwing up just constantly. It was horrible. This pregnancy was probably one of the reasons why I realized I don't like pregnancy. I love children. I don't like pregnancy. And I just remember pulling over on the side of the road at times, like in the mornings, if I didn't eat right at a certain time, and just puking up everything that I ate. And I know this is very much detail, but it's a part of the story. So also, I had conversations with his biological dad while I was pregnant about names and like what he wanted to name him after I found out he was a boy. And then, probably earlier on, I just was under a lot of stress because he and I, the father and myself, our relationship started drifting apart. I was feeling very lonely. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to raise this child on my own. Kind of late to be thinking like that, eh? But regardless, what do you know when you're 18? You know enough, but you don't know a lot. But we think we know everything. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we're drifting apart. Like, we're even still getting into fights, like physically, while I'm pregnant. And it didn't dawn on me that I shouldn't, be doing all of this until my son, the stress and the anxiety that was on my body started making it so that my baby was trying to come early. So at about 25 weeks, I find myself in the hospital. I was having contractions regularly. So they were like, no, the baby cannot come yet. He was fine, but my body was trying to, get the baby out. And so I ended up having to be on, I think, progesterone, something like that it's called, pretty much up until about 35 weeks. And they gave me that shot. Worst shot I've ever had in my life. It burned so bad going in. I mean, I don't know what in the world, but it was horrible. Horrible. If you ever have to get the shot to stop contractions, just brace yourself. I don't know if it's better now, but brace yourself, because worst pain I've ever had from a shot. So fast forward to 35 weeks, because I was basically just kind of put on like rest. And then I completely just backed off of my son's father for those few weeks because I needed to rest and my body needs to heal. One thing that happened during the time that I had backed off from my son's father was that when I was about 6 months pregnant, this was shortly after going to the hospital, because that was at about 5 months at 26 weeks. So about a month later, I stopped kind of talking to him, didn't really want to have anything to do with him just because I saw the toll that it was taking on my body. He comes by my house. That time I was living with my mom. And he comes by my house. And at that time I was just like, look, bruh, like, we cannot be together. I'm not dealing with this anymore. Like, you just need to go on. You're stressing me out. And he looked at me and like hits me in my face. I was like, okay, no. Like, at that moment, I think I got scared because I didn't want to get into a deeper physical altercation because I knew that my body couldn't handle it. So I just, at that time, I kind of just said whatever to get him to leave. But in my heart of hearts, I was like, no, I'm done. And I was done. From that day forward, I was done. At the time, I had a pretty decent job, for 2005 income, and being 18, 19 years old, I had a decent job. I was making, I think, like $10, $11 an hour, and I was getting commissions. So God really provided for me during that time. And I was able to, with the help of my mom too, I was able to purchase, all of the stuff that I needed for the baby, and also my lovely coworkers. And this is going to make me cry because I don't know where these people are now. A lot of them, some of them I still have a little bit of contact with, but we're not close. But they were so, 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 so sweet. It was a horrible job now that I think about it, but it was provision at the time. But those people that worked at that job were so sweet. They threw me a surprise baby shower. They didn't even know what I needed, but literally everything that they got me was exactly what I needed. And I just feel like that was God looking out. And I remember it was a husband and a wife. I don't remember their name. Well, I remember one of the ladies' names, but I'm not going to say it on here since I'm putting that out in public. But it was a husband and a wife, and they always were so, they were always talking about their relationship with God. And the wife, she carried a Bible every single day that she was there at the office. She had a Bible with her, and even he had a Bible with him too. And I didn't really think about it at that time, but I was like, wow, like, now that I think back about it, I'm like, wow, like, they must have been praying for me, in addition to all the people that my mom had praying for me too, because during this time I was breaking my mom's heart. And because I was just so rebellious, so stubborn. And she tells me about all the people that she had called, and I thank all of them too, to just please pray. Please pray. And I thank my mom for praying, because God truly did show up and answer those prayers. So I have my baby shower, which was such a blessing. Like, I really am. I was so grateful. And at the time, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's for me, Oh gosh, I just think about I was grateful and I was thankful, because I've pretty much always been a person that can say thank you and understand, people care. But just so prideful and so arrogant at the same time. Like, oh my gosh, I just think back. It's like, ugh, wow, how were you so... But anyways, it's all a part of the journey, right? So fast forward, I stopped taking and I'm sorry, y'all. I stopped taking the progesterone pills. That I had the pills at that time. And actually my doctor at the time was a pretty well-known doctor. She's actually, I think, on some reality show recently, but she's a pretty well-known doctor here in the Metro Atlanta area. And, she would always have conversations with me about what I want to do and this and that. And, I would talk to her, but there was a part of me that like was, didn't like her, because she would always just keep it like 100 with me. And I was like, who is this lady? But, like, she was speaking from a place of wisdom. And like, now that I think back on it, I was like, yeah. Like, she said it harshly, but she said what actually needed to be said. And I really actually needed to hear it that way. Because now that I think back on it, like, she was right. She was very right, and I should have been doing better. So, just, I'm kind of getting off on tangents, but my memories are flooding right now. And I definitely thank you, Holy Spirit, for helping me tell this story. But I think back, and, I stopped taking the medicine, and not even a week later, my contractions start again. So now I'm at 36 weeks. My contractions start again, probably because I was just stressed. I was stressed out. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I was stressed out. I was on Medicaid. I barely making ends meet. Had a decent job, but like, I didn't make any money. So go to the hospital. My doctor's like, okay, fine. You've been calling me almost every week. I was tired of being pregnant. I was very tired of being pregnant. I think I was just tired in general. So I get to the hospital. They do the epidural on me. I wasn't actively in labor, but I was having contractions. So they did the epidural on me, and then they started the Pitocin to go ahead and move my labor along. And I was scared and I was shaking, but I didn't realize at the time because I was so young. And I wish I would have asked so many more questions. You know, you don't know until you get older and you mature and you grow to ask questions about what's going on instead of just letting things happen to you. But I'm literally, you know, moving along. I'm shivering. I didn't really know that that's the side effects of the epidural. You shake, you're shivering, you're cold. So start going into active labor. I end up having my son, and I just remember I didn't know at the time before I held him, like, how am I going to be able to love this human being? And I just remember holding him and like looking down at him and just being in awe, like, oh my gosh, this is mine. And this love just like flooded me. And I really do feel like it was supernatural. It was definitely God's love pouring out through me for my son. Because he loves him more than I do, or can ever love him. But I just remember looking down at him and just being so in love with him. He was just so cute, so snuggly, and so beautiful. And, you know, shortly after, you know, his dad was there, you know, but he came, I think, like right after, like in the room, maybe right after I had him. And so I had already named him, everything. So he literally bends down into my ear and he's like, you know, you selfish bee. Because he had a name picked out from what his mom told me shortly after that. He had a name picked out for him. But the thing is that I had been asking him for months. Like, let's talk about names, yada, yada. He don't want to give me anything. Because also, at that time, he started saying, oh, well, this isn't my son. I'm not signing the birth certificate. Okay, that's fine. And he didn't. He didn't sign it. You know, I was like, okay, well, this is not your son, but okay, whatever. Yeah, you can say that. I knew I hadn't been with anybody else. So, he ends up like, you know, basically denying him. And I was just like, at that time, I really started thinking about it. I was like, you know what? You know, forget this guy. And I probably said a few curse words too. Inside of me, I wanted to like fight with him. But then my body was like, nope, you just had a baby. You can't fight this guy. So you need to just sit down. And I'm sure that was God holding me back and restraining me. But, you know, I was hurt. I was very hurt because while I was getting over my ex, I still had love for him and I still wanted him to be a part of my son's life because I never went into the intention of having a child without the dad being a part of the child's life. And in my mind this whole time, I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, he'll change, he's going to do the right thing. And unfortunately, that day never came. So fast forward, you know, after having him, I would say maybe about a year later, like I ended up putting my son's father on child support because I was like, you know, I'm working like very hard to support this child. Like it would be nice if I could get some help. Well, up until this day, this man has avoided, and this is just the truth. This man has avoided basically holding a regular job. So, and I don't know if it's just because he doesn't want to pay child support. So I don't want to assume that or put that out there, but he has not been paying child support essentially or helping with raising my son. He doesn't even call him his son, even though we later on found out that biologically, that is his son, through a paternity test. So it's just sad. In my mind, it was just a sad thing because it's like, I personally don't understand how a person can go and just walk away from their child, not knowing whether or not that child's going to be okay. I knew my child was going to be okay because I knew that I was going to work hard and do whatever it takes at the time to make sure that my child was okay, but not even really realizing that it was God's grace. It was truly God's grace that kept me all this time, that allowed me to raise this young man, who's now a young man. But I will say that after all of these years, in 2020, the biological father, reached out to me. And at this time, I've gotten married. I've had other children. He says, hey, I want to, talk to my son and get to know him and try to do the right thing. I was like, okay, that's fine. I said, but, it's been years. He doesn't know you. You need to have a conversation, a sit down face-to-face conversation with me and my husband, because at the end of the day, my husband has been the one that's raised him. Because my husband came into my life and our lives when he just turned 8 years old, not too long after that. And so he's been basically the only father figure that my son has known since he was 8 years old, and he's 18 today. So you need to come through and show respect and have a conversation with both of us so that we can be on the same page. We can set boundaries and we can all know how things are going to go. Well, the day comes, I scheduled a time to meet with him. My husband comes with me. He takes time to be prepared and go sit with him. Because when I say, y'all, like, this man that I'm married to right now is, like, amazing. He's amazing. Like, the way he has, and if you hear the TV in the background, that's him watching some sort of comedy. I don't know. But the way he has stepped up and not only never looked at my children any other way, but with love and knowing that we came as a package. Like, I don't know many men that are like that. And I'm very proud and honored to be his wife. But anyways, the day comes, we get to the place where we're going to meet. We ended up trying to meet at like a Panera or something. And I get a text message from my son's biological dad saying, oh, sorry, like, I had to work today. I'm like, you have to work, but, like, you're not paying your child support. That's another story for another day. I'm not even going to sweat that, but okay. So he's like, and maybe in his mind, he thought that I was going to try to, like, have the police there or, like, get him arrested for not paying child support. But at the end of the day, like, do I want the money that's owed for all these years of raising this child by myself? And my husband then coming in and taking money out of his own pocket for a child that's not his? Yeah, I do. But at the end of the day, my mind was far from trying to get back at him. It was trying to reconcile a damaged and broken relationship. But it takes two to do that. So, of course, he, bails out of the conversation that day. And obviously he'd been thinking about it. But, ever since that day, it was 2020 during the pandemic, or maybe 2021, one of those 2 years. It was still pandemic time. I haven't heard from him since. So, it's sad because he also has another child that tells me he's more involved in that child's life, which is sad because it's like, how can you pick and choose one child over the other? Now, as far as my son, like, never missed a beat. I'm sure there's other things, that he can say of how he feels about, you know, his biological dad not being around. I don't know. I can't speak for him. That's something that he would have to discuss. But from what I see, I've done everything within my ability by the grace of God to make sure that my son has had the best life possible. And I mean, I feel like we've gotten there to some extent. He's still got a lot more life to live, God willing, and by the grace of God. But he's going to be graduating this year. So he's a senior in high school. And, I'm excited to see where his future takes him. I'm excited to see his relationship with God evolve as he gets older. And, I don't know. I don't know where the story will go, but I know Cameron is a wonderful young man, and he's smart. He's caring. He's passionate about the things that he does when he wants to do them, because we all know how teenagers are. But Cameron is just an awesome young man, and I love him so much. But thank y'all for listening. I'll be back on. There's going to be a part 3, 4, 5, I'm sure. Like, I'm just putting it all out there. Not to blast anybody, not to shun anybody, but, this is my journey and my story, and I want to talk about it. But love y'all with the love of God. I pray that God blesses you and keeps you. Yeah, bless y'all.